it was a very interesting stand-up. It kept my attention. I don't think it was particularly hilarious, and I don't think Chappelle has been particularly hilarious for a while. So I don't necessarily tune in for the laughs when I tune into
Mhm.
Chappelle. I tune in for the commentary and kind of with like the pivots that he's been taking lately. There's a part of me that's tuning in to see, okay, where is this dude really standing at on shit that matters, right? Um, I can say that he took a few weird stances there where he was like kind of still like siding with Charlie Kirk while also kind of, talking about how ridiculous the overreaction was on the right to kind of canonizing him, right? Like saying he was the next Martin Luther King. But I feel like he was still like supportive of him, and it was kind of like, okay,
I think
complicated
he
man.
I think he didn't sorry. I don't wanna interrupt you, but I
No,
don't
go
think
ahead.
he supported him. I think he just didn't support him getting murdered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
I mean,
hey,
he
you
did
know
call
what I
him,
mean?
he did reduce him to just being like a harmless
We don't
white guy
agree
who
on all things, you
no,
know what I'm saying?
he did reduce him to being like a harmless white guy who did everything the right way
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
killed him. And I was like, I don't know about that. But
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I don't agree on I don't agree on
yeah,
just being
yeah.
that, but I see where he's coming from as a person who is disliked greatly by a particular group and, seeing political violence or I mean, being that a lot of his jokes or what he says is based in politics. I
Mhm,
see how he can be sensitive to that. It makes a lot of sense. He'd be like, "Hey, how about nobody get killed?" You know what I mean?
mhm.
Completely understand that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Life isn't that way though. Well, go ahead.
yeah. And I think he's for sure lost his fastball of like making me laugh with cracking me up, but that storytelling is still there. It's still top notch. He is still someone who will will narrate some shit and take you through twists and turns and it all ties in together. And I thought this was like a masterful display of that, where he was talking about how, Jack Johnson um got hit with the was it the Mann Act, where they basically
Mhm.
Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight boxing champion, and they basically hated how much he dated white women, and they tried to, they
Beat up
basically
white men
yeah, yeah,
and then fuck, yeah,
yeah,
white women,
and
yeah.
they created this Mann Act where they, persecuted him for traveling across state lines with his white woman. They said that you were that was basically essentially sex trafficking. Like that's what they reduced it to. Just to railroad a black dude who was like, kind of beating racism's ass in a figurative sense, right? In that boxing ring. And he tied that into and this was another thing where I was like, okay, where are we going with this? Where he tied that into kind of, the Puff case, where he was like, he said like he didn't feel like, the charges that were brought against him were necessarily valid, but he feel like Puff got hung up on some technicalities, which is another thing where I was like, I don't know, man, Puff sounded like a motherfucking monster in the shit that I was hearing. You know what
I
I'm saying?
think yeah, I think he just he doesn't take hard stance where he used to take hard stance. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Where he used to like he, he- he's quick to say fuck old boy, you know what I'm saying? What's the white man name? Bill Maher. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
like, I mean, you could do the same thing with Puff, and that's fine. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I know Puff, saved your life. He tackled a nigga. I don't know if he saved his life, but he tackled a nigga that was trying to stab him or whatever. But yeah, it's just like you can also say like fuck
Yeah.
what he
Yeah.
did, and
Yeah. He's
he's
on
a
some weird shit
monster.
that I ain't know about. Like, and I
Yeah,
don't fuck with
yeah,
that.
like
Like,
yeah,
that's a very benign stance to take, and he didn't
yeah.
even take that.
It's just yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting
And that joke he cracked on Cassie was just, man, it was in poor taste to
in
me.
bad taste.
Yeah,
In bad taste.
and I'm not someone who tells comedians what you can and can't joke about, but bro,
It just
if
has to be funny.
yes, if you gonna crack a joke on something like that, bro, it better be hilarious.
A
And the dude is
banger.
not worth the squeeze on that shit that he cracked. So
Period, period. Even like the gender, it's like, bro, them shits, bro, you basically said that joke 4, what I'm saying, stand-ups ago. You know what I mean? Like in 2000 and was it 2016, 2017 when he first hopped back on the scene, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. But like I said, I did enjoy the storytelling aspect of it. Like he wove in Jack Johnson with Diddy, with Nipsey Hussle. Like that was a turn I didn't
Amazing.
see coming, right? You know, and the stories he told about Nipsey were just like, that was, it's just gonna be sick about Nipsey forever, bro.
Yep.
You know, gonna be sick about Nipsey forever. Anytime anyone reminisces on him or tells stories about him, like it just hits me in a place where it's just like, man, I'm just never gonna get over how fucked up that was. And but yeah, like I said, I think he's lost the fastball with the humor. I think that I'm not a fan of the stances he takes, but there were some glimmers where he was like, okay, he's not all the way gone. Like he said fuck Bill Maher. He ended it by saying fuck Donald Trump, which is something that I would have never seen coming. From the dude who went on SNL and told us to give the dude a chance when he first got elected. But he got some new information as time is progressing. He changed his opinion, so shout out to him on that. But yeah, it's I mean, Chappelle seems like he'd be way more of an interesting interview at this stage than like a stand-up comedian, right? Like get someone gets because I would love for someone to have pushed back on him trying to minimize what Puff did, right? Like I would love for someone to kind of push back on him saying Charlie Kirk was harmless, right? Like that those are the conversations I would like to see him partake in.
I would love a conversation between him and like TNC.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think it'd be an interesting conversation, and not debate form. Just like they will disagree in moments and be respectful. I'm fucking with that. I'd fuck with that for sure. The last 50 minutes was masterful. The last 50 minutes I was captivated. Like you said, he's not the same like joke teller he used to be. Like as far as like cracking jokes, but when it comes to storytelling, it was just a 50-minute closing joke that's a story. Who can do that? One of one. You know what I mean? In that sense. But yeah, I just feel like they're saying he just has, and in the chat they're saying he just had money too long. I feel like when you have money that long, your stance becomes money. You feel me? I feel like your stance becomes the thing that protects your bag. And he said some things
about
I think
how different we see the world from going from being poor to being middle class. You go from being poor to being wealthy, and then you're that way for decades. Like, I don't know anyone who made that transition I don't even blame people for it. I don't even blame people for it. Like, honestly, like, not to excuse it, but just like, I just think to your point, you see the world from a different perspective. I don't happen to identify with that perspective because I'm not a super wealthy fucking person.
I just feel like I don't know how much money it would take for me to I don't know if I should say this I'm really not going to say this on we can talk about it a little. I just feel there's some stance he has that he has 10 toes on it. He's like, but what about that? There's no amount of money.
Right.
I'm going to be like, I mean, for instance, like with the Puffy shit. The nigga could have saved my life 10 times. I'm not going to see Cassie get dragged through a fucking hotel and not think that nigga is an absolute fucking monster.
Of course.
Thank you for saving my life. I'm appreciative. Fuck you forever. I just don't understand how that's hard when you saw what he did. So like, I just feel like there's certain things that, yes, you have so much money that are just inexcusable. Even if they're railroading his ass or whatever they're trying to say, they're getting more technicality. Who gives a fuck? The nigga needs to be in jail. You know what I mean? So like, get monsters off the street. I think we can all stand for that. So like, having money allows you to, or you get a certain amount of money and you feel sympathetic. Like even with the Charlie Kirk shit, like a complicated man. No, he was a monster. I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to
be against political violence.
Yes, and still say he's a fucking monster.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whether he deserved it or not, and you can feel whatever you feel about that. You know what I mean? But he was a monster. What he was doing was the devil's work. You know what I mean? So I just don't think that's I think what Puffy is doing is is evil shit. So I think you can say that and still say, I wish he wasn't assassinated. You know what I mean? Or believe that. I don't know, man. I just feel like money's no excuse, but I think money does that to people. And we've talked about that, how it's kind of shocking to me how influenced people are by money. But yeah, man, you can see that in his stand-up now.
Larry makes a point too. Like, I think the thing that's so difficult for me with Chappelle is I never really agreed with comedians about anything. Like they were always coming from a perspective that was so different from the way I saw the world, but I still thought they were funny. Chappelle was one of the few comedians where I really agreed with almost everything he was saying. Shar and I were at the filming for the special where he defended Bill Cosby. And it was like my stomach turned upside down in the middle of this show with my wife. I mean, and that was similarly like
What
the
year
story.
when was that?
I don't remember what year it was, but the storytelling was similarly masterful on that. I mean, and I disagree with his argument, but the storytelling on how much good could you do to make up for being the worst person in the world or whatever. I mean, it's an interesting philosophical thing, whatever. I'm just disagree. I just think if you're a monster, you're a monster.
Yeah.
And that to me was like it was almost a sense of vertigo of like Dave Chappelle is defending rape. I mean, like there's just no other way to put it. I mean, they're just
serial rape,
like in the worst way. Like, so to me, I mean, I haven't watched the special. I probably won't. I'm still interested in him, as you said, as a storyteller, and as a now maybe more as a commentator than as a comedian. Just a commentator that I disagree with a good portion of the time. But yeah, it's just it's a weird process. And the only thing I would say, again, not at all excusing the journey, I would just say, like, I've known a number of people who went from being poor or middle class to wealthy, and like, I don't know that I think
you don't know that person in the same.
I mean, it's just so when I say that, I don't again mean to excuse it. I just mean to say, like, I don't ever come at anything thinking that I'm special. And so if I've seen 50 people go through a process and become someone I don't like, I don't think that I necessarily would not like. There must be something about that process that is really difficult to not have it change you. And I do see things so differently from when I was poor now that it's I can't even imagine going from where we are to where Chappelle is. And it just seems like it must be tremendously warping because the shit, you couldn't imagine him saying any of this shit, 30 years ago, obviously.
I mean, he flat out admitted in this stand-up, he said, I'm a capitalist. Like, people ask him, why do you live in Ohio? He was like, because I bought up that whole fucking town. Like, like that's legitimately the reason he lives it. Like, he had, to your credit, Mike, comedic fucking genius mind. He had a bit about how they were going to sell the firehouse and they wanted to do it when Chappelle was out of town. But Chappelle said that he has informants who came up to him like they were serfs, like peasant serfs. Like, my lord, they are planning on selling the firehouse while you away. And you crack that joke without even seeing that shit. So, but yeah, he has flat out said he's a capitalist. He has said in no uncertain terms that he's a capitalist. And I mean, you just can't be ethical when you prioritize money over everything.
You can't.
Yeah, I mean, like, by definition. I mean, that is an ethical decision, but it's a decision to value something that is not tied to morals and ethics. And that through the history of this country, as we've seen almost every time an enormous amount of capital is generated, it is specifically from doing unethical, immoral things.
Is there a way to practice capitalism that is as heartless as how America practices it? Because I feel like if you have like some regulations, if the market doesn't decide everything, it becomes like there's a more humane way to do it. So I don't think like being a capitalist alone makes you. I mean, I don't know.
I agree with you. No, I agree with you. And I would
money over everything.
I wouldn't say that I'm not I wouldn't say that I'm not a capitalist. I'm pro like regulating the fucking shit out of everything.
Billionaires shouldn't exist. Like there should be things in place that prevent people from the floor should be raised. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be a paycheck or two from being on the street. There should be things in place to prevent that type of shit.
There's people talking about the difference between capitalism and corporatism, which, like, just as an example, I bring this up all the time. The newspaper in Long Beach, which because we're in a news desert, our daily newspaper was the only major news source we had. It's been profitable for 120 years. It was making a 8%, 10% profit. if the three of us started a business that did a tremendous community good, was valued by literally every person in the city, and made us $1 million a year, we'd be high-fiving and we wouldn't even have to fucking pull our ass out on Zoom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
$1 million a year. The newspaper was bought by a hedge fund. The hedge fund has to make 15% every year. So every year, if the newspaper made 8%, they cut 7%. If it made 10%, they cut 5% until there's no newspaper left anymore. Now, it
So
could
they
be a
sucked it
capitalist
dry.
thing to run a newspaper that makes $1 million a year and does a community good and everyone goes home happy. I think I would do that. And so, I mean, the outlet we started as a nonprofit to avoid the conundrum in the future. But like, I think that that's possible. But in the corporatist, free market, unregulated state, that's not what happens. It's an endless drive towards more and more profitability that's not sustainable in any kind of ethical or moral way. So,
but we see other things like communism, and it's a nasty word. Socialism, ideally, sounds good. Nasty work. You know, when in practice, what we've seen. I think people are just shitty.
Yeah.
So they'll find a way to abuse even the best.
There's no system that solves the input into the system.
That solves the inhumanity within humans. You know what I mean?
Every system gets exploited by the people in
Yes,
power.
yes.
Like you mentioned, communism, socialism, those crumble because the people in power are corrupt.
Yes.
Like, this is, I don't know, dog.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, hey, two things. We have to really enjoy when a Jake Paul gets his jaw broken 2 places. And sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I apologize for being white. That's all the time we got.
Hold on. One last thing, because me and John were talking about how much we love the montage at the end of.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I thought the montage with Chappelle showing him with, a bunch of his friends, it was really beautiful. He dedicated
basically corroborating the story he basically just told, like stamping that shit. Go ahead, though. Yeah.
He dedicated it to D'Angelo, which was beautiful too.
And his wife.
And his wife. And he said, as always, like,
that's beautiful.
Yeah. That's like you've been holding me down forever type.
That was moving. Very moving.
Yeah, and then we saw, because a bit, and like I said, just how he's a masterful storyteller who ties everything together. He was talking about how there, if you ever know that the government has compromised me, you'll hear me say something like long live Israel or something like that. I forget what exactly.
I stand with Israel.
I stand with Israel, right? Yeah. which was like, like I said, like I tune into Chappelle's stand-ups now to see where he's standing on things. And for him to, take a shot at Trump, to take a shot at Israel and be pro-Palestine, like, those were kind of, shockers that the guy I grew up liking is still in there somewhere, right?
Somewhere, yeah.
And then, like I said, he was talking about how if the government compromised them, and he was talking about Jack Johnson and all that. And you see the final scene is a
file,
a government file. They close the folder, and the folder says "The Unstoppable Nigger" on it. And if you look at the title of the Netflix special, it's "The Unstoppable ... right? So you can tell that was probably the original title he wanted to go with, but of course you can't fucking drop a special called "The Unstoppable Nigger." But that word holds a lot of weight in the kind of historical aspect that he was using it in regards to, like, white men in power who want to take black men down. Even though I don't agree with that shit on the Puff stance, but those were the lines that he was drawing there, right? So I thought that was kind of like an interesting way to pull it all together.
Do you think he said the jokes about Puff, but then there's that close-up on Marlon Wayans in that montage. Somebody brought it up in the chat, which made me think he's highlighting that, what I'm saying, it's like that some motherfuckers knew Puff was on that bullshit. So he says these jokes, but then that kind of made me think, like, he knows Puff was tweaking, like Puff was a monster, like, and that highlighted Marlon looking at that nigga like, this nigga ain't shit. You feel me? Like, I don't know. It's kind of contradictory, but it made me guess, like, for him. Okay, this is the thing with Chappelle. Chappelle's jokes, or at least what they've been, seems so close to who he is. It doesn't seem like some people just tell jokes and they're just jokes. His jokes seem like they're more than just jokes. It's a reflection of who he is as a man and the stances he's taking. I don't know if you can go in and out of that in a comedy special, but that picture in the end made me wonder, like, the joke that he said or what he was saying about Puff, was it just a joke, or is it really where he stands? But I mean, I don't know. I mean, you gotta hold him to his word and how he's operated in the past as
no,
well.
I mean, we can look at the homework. Like Mike said, he was at a show where he was defending Cosby. I think he believes that
Yeah.
any black man in power who gets, taken down
Yeah.
is conspired against.
People have
Yeah.
rightly in the chat, I think, pointed out that he identifies with those men and not
Yeah.
with their victims. And I
Yep.
think that
Yep.
because we saw him as identify with the common man more than any other like media superstar.
He hasn't been a
when we
common
were
man in a
younger.
long, long, long time.
But I think that's what makes it so difficult for us to see that transformation.
And where he tied Nipsey into it with the whole black men being conspired against by folks of power was he brought up Dr. Sebi and how Nipsey was working on that documentary on that. And he tied that into, I forget the guy's name, but he said this was the greatest comedian he ever saw. A dude was supposed to get Eddie Murphy's job on SNL, but he couldn't read. And so they gave it to Eddie. And he was talking about how he got hit. Chappelle got hit to Dr. Sebi, and his friend, this comedian who didn't make the SNL cut, who was kind of, that wasn't his big break, and he was just kind of, struggling to get by here and there, and he had AIDS, and he's like, he took him to Dr. Sebi for treatment, and he said the nigga died in 3 months, and that like I said, I
never laughed at that type of shit. That was so funny, undeniable.
I said, I'm not in the business of telling comedians what you can and can't joke about, but if you're going to joke about it, make it funny. And I laughed at that, but that Cassie shit was just, man.
Yeah,
I wasn't riding with it.
That's all that's going to do in comedy specials. Give you the ooh. That's not going to really make anybody laugh.
Yeah,
I watch comedy specials to laugh. I don't watch comedy specials to see you shit on somebody who's already been through enough.